All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome back. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. We are so excited to be together in person again after almost 2 years of gathering only online during the coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections with each other online also, as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Hello, my name is Russell Feldhausen, and it is my honor to serve as the Vice President of the All Souls Board of Trustees. I'm here today to share information about the upcoming All Souls Annual Meeting. As required by Article 4 of our Constitution, we must hold an annual meeting of our society in May each year. This year's meeting will be held on Sunday, May 22nd at 1 p.m. in the church's Bragg Auditorium. If you are unable to attend in person, the meeting will also be available via Zoom, so you can join using a computer, tablet, or smartphone, or you can even call in using a regular telephone. The information for joining on Zoom can be found on the main page of our website at allsoulskc.org. Look for the Community Connection link on the home page. The purpose of the annual meeting will be to adopt an annual budget and to elect incoming members of the Board of Trustees and various church committees. In addition, we will be voting on several items, including a request for a grant from the endowment, amendments to the church constitution and bylaws, an amendment to the church mission statement, and a ratification of business conducted online during the pandemic. Details about each of these items can be found on the church website or in the newsletter. To facilitate holding our annual meeting both in person and online, we have adopted a process to make sure every voting member is informed and able to cast a ballot. On Friday, May 13th, an email will be sent to all certified voting members containing information about the meeting and how to cast your vote. If you do not receive this email but believe you should have, please send an email to board@allsoulskc.org and we will look into it. For members attending in person, a paper ballot will be distributed at the annual meeting, and we will follow standard parliamentary procedure for handling voting in person. Members may also submit a form to allow someone else to vote as an in-person proxy on their behalf. Details for proxy voting can be found on the church website or in the newsletter. For members attending online via Zoom or members who are unable to attend, a ballot will be sent via email shortly before the start of the meeting. That ballot must be submitted online within 10 minutes of the time the ballots are collected at the annual meeting in person. However, if you run into any technology issues or prefer not to use the online form, we will provide information during the meeting for how to cast your vote via phone. We will then tabulate the results and share them by the end of the meeting. Here are some next steps you'll want to be aware of as we get closer to the annual meeting. First, the Board of Trustees met for their regular meeting on April 20th. During that meeting, we created and approved an agenda for the annual meeting, and at a prior meeting, we also passed an annual budget presented from the Finance Committee to be presented to the congregation for approval. These documents will be shared via the church newsletter and on our website. Next, please watch for an email on May 13th from board@allsoulskc.org containing information about the meeting. Again, if you don't receive that email and believe you should have, contact us at board@allsoulskc.org and we'll look into it. Also, please take some time to review the presented agenda and budget and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Finally, make sure you mark your calendars for May 22nd at 1:00 p.m. for the All Souls annual meeting. We hope to see you there. Since we are back to meeting in person, the Cassidy sisters are once again providing a delicious Sunday Plus lunch before the annual meeting. Please remember to pre-order. We hope that this process will allow everyone to attend the annual meeting and feel that their voice is heard. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email the Board of Trustees at board@allsoulskc.org or reach out to any board member. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Don Dickey. I'm a member of this congregation, and it is my privilege to welcome you back to where we get to see parts of familiar faces. And for those of you joining us through the internet, thank you. We appreciate your participation, and it has been a very powerful tool for helping to maintain our community during this pandemic. And today we welcome to the pulpit Rev Shelley Page from Lawrence, and she will enlighten us on some of our Eastern connections to our history of our church.
Good morning, Kansas City All Souls. I am truly delighted to be here on this Pulpit Exchange Sunday where I'm with you and Kendall Gibbons is with my people in Lawrence, Kansas. So we're just doing a little swap this morning in between the thunderstorms. So I'm glad to be here. We're going to open our worship today with the words attributed to Kalidasa, a classical 4th century Sanskrit author, often considered one of India's greatest poets and playwrights. His work is based on ancient sacred Vedic texts. This is what he has to say to us. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. I'd like us to pause for a moment as we begin our time together, because my sense is that we're all carrying a bit of a heavy heart this morning with the news that yesterday a racially motivated mass shooting incident happened in a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Some of us actually know people from Buffalo who were marked safe. Some of us may never ever go to Buffalo. All of us hold those folks in our hearts, as well as the Palestinians mourning one of their own who was killed this week, as well as all the people in Ukraine right now, as well as others who woke up this morning dealing with violence, war, famine, and oppression in any way. We hold these things in our hearts and send our good energy to all who need it, wherever they may be. We're going to kindle our flaming chalice this morning with words from my colleague, Reverend Julian Lepp, who serves our sibling congregation in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. I invite you to join in singing "O Life That Maketh All Things New," a hymn I know you're familiar with. We're opening and closing our service today with hymns created by Samuel Longfellow. Now, Longfellow, that name may ring a bell. This is indeed the brother of the famous poet who was also a Unitarian minister, who openly sought a more expansive view of God well beyond Christianity back in his day, which was the mid-1800s. So let us sing together, rising in body or spirit as you wish, and remain standing for your affirmation of your congregation's covenant. So let's sing.
Please join in the affirmation of our covenant. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
I've noticed that superheroes are pretty popular these days. You know, there's this constant parade of movies with superheroes. And I must admit, I have my own personal favorite among the pantheon, and not surprising, Wonder Woman, of course. But I have an affinity for superheroes going way back, because quite honestly, humans have been creating superheroes for a very long time. They used to be called deities, gods and goddesses. And indeed, in the Indian subcontinent, there's a whole pantheon of gods and goddesses from what we now call the Hindu tradition. I personally have a favorite among that. In fact, such a favorite that I have that deity in my office, and I'd like you to meet him. Could we please meet Ganesha? Oh yeah, the elephant god. The elephant god, and you're looking at him. This is actually the picture from my office. I took a picture on my cell phone, so I'm hoping you can see some detail there. Ganesha, now you think of superheroes, you think, what are his powers? So here are his powers. He has a goad, which is actually what humans use now to goad elephants in the training process. But think of it as a goad to us into right action. He's goading us in the right way. Ganesha also has a noose, and the noose is to snare obstacles and pull them out of the way, because elephants, of course, are very strong. And in the Indian subculture, of course, we know that there's all kinds of uses for elephants, like clearing logs. And so we have Ganesha snaring those obstacles and pulling them out of the way. But of course, like a lot of Hindu deities, Ganesha's got many arms, so he can carry a lot of things, and he always has a sweet dumpling in his hand, because why not? He loves joy. He loves sweetness in life. And quite often, in the curl of his trunk, you'll see him holding a little vessel that has a bit of water in it from the sacred river Ganges. Now, there's a lot of different pictures of Ganesha. If you go online, you're going to be blown away. Just Google Ganesha, and you're going to see a lot of different versions. You'll see him holding some other implements, sometimes other weapons, again, to remove obstacles, because that's one of his special things. And sometimes he's also holding a conch shell. That's an interesting thing. Why would he be holding a conch shell? And that's because he is associated with a particular sound, the sound of Om. And if you've ever heard a conch shell, it sounds quite a bit like that Om sound. And that is one of his other superpowers. So let's learn a bit more about that through one of the stories associated with Ganesha. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of stories about Ganesha, because Ganesha is a fascinating character that has morphed in his meanings and his superpowers over time. But this is one version, and it's kind of a foundational version of understanding a bit about Ganesha. So here we go. In the beginning, there wasn't anything. There was formlessness, like nothingness. But the one who created Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva. Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva, the destroyer. And then there was a sound in the distance. Very soft, but then louder and louder. Om, Om. And out of that sound came color and lights and dancing. It was Ganesha bringing color and light and sound. And he saw Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva and said, oh, go out and create and preserve and destroy. Just go for it, guys. And they looked at him and they said, but, well, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know what to do. And Ganesha started laughing. He goes, okay, I get it. He says, let me help you out here. I am the universe. And he opened his big elephant mouth, and it became a cave. And the three stepped inside, and Ganesha swallowed them. So they're down in his big elephant belly, and they're seeing galaxies and planets and stars and all manner of things. And Brahma is starting to think, oh, now I know some things to create, but I don't know how. And of course, Ganesha heard him thinking this and started laughing even harder. He goes, oh, you all don't know what to do next, but I'm going to help you with this. I am going to help you. What you need to know is the sound of Om. Om meaning the beginning and the end and everything in between. And you'll notice the symbol for Om, which is the symbol of Hinduism, on the screen. And you'll notice that it is shaped like an elephant's, the curve of an elephant's trunk. This is not a coincidence. That is Ganesha energy. And so Ganesha is saying, yes, you've got to learn how to do Om. And so the three went, okay, we'll try this. So let us Om with Vishnu and Shiva and Brahma. Om. 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 And after the three had chanted Om and took the Om energy into themselves, Ganesha opened his mouth and they were released into the world. Brahma was creating, Vishnu was saving, preserving, and Shiva was destroying universe after universe after universe, time after time after time. And they're still at it today because they learned the secret of Om. And do we have children that will be sung out? Yes, so we're going to be singing our children off to their RE classes or activities today. And so let's sing.
Go now in peace, may love guide all your ways. Beauty may the blessing of your nights and days. Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
Hi, I am Andrea Johnson. I am the board president of All Souls here, and late last night, Roma Lee tested positive for COVID, so I get to be her. So if you will kindly look at that picture and imagine her calm Southern drawl as I read along. And he's going to go back to the top there for me. He was trying to figure out where I was, and I was ad-libbing part of it. Good morning. I am Roma Lee Taunton, a member of our Board of Trustees. I've belonged to All Souls so long that I don't remember whether my hair was blonde, brown, or auburn when I joined. I have a message from the board. We thank you for your pledges. We acknowledge that we are behind in meeting our pledge goal for the coming year. If you haven't pledged already, please do so. It will help us determine how much of the proposed budget for next year we can fund. The budget proposal is available online. All Souls has given me a sense of stability, stimulation, and support as I moved through several career phases, marriage, retirement, and the death of my husband. Over time, I have served on the Moore Squared core team, organized poetry jams for our youth as part of Juneteenth celebrations, facilitated our adoption of Carver Elementary School, and coordinated our Carver volunteers for the first 6 years. I have been blessed to sing in the choir for many years and have chaired the music committee. Being part of All Souls is a significant factor in my decision to remain in Kansas City. My job today is to invite you to participate in the offering. Today, those funds go to the operations budget. Please close your eyes. She really wants you to do this. Recall that bright blue bar on the All Souls website that says Donate Now. If you haven't donated to All Souls online, just picture a blue bar with white writing. Imagine that you are clicking the blue bar. First, you are asked to enter the amount you are giving today. Do that. Next, you are asked to choose either All Souls operations budget or one of the 8 special funds for contributions to our programs, such as the Forum, Music and Religious Education, or Memorial and Celebration events. The All Souls operations budget supports the basic property, communication, and staffing expenses that facilitate all the programs that make us who we are. Click the All Souls operations budget, and then click Submit. Please open your eyes. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Before we dedicate our offering, I would like to ask Anthony to introduce our guest musician, because he did a phenomenal job.
My friend Mark Kohick is here. Mark and I have worked together in many venues, and he is one of the premier reed players. He plays a lot more than flute. He plays all of the instruments, and so I know Mark is always a great one for me to count on to help, and I said, Mark, come improvise something Middle Eastern for us so that we can help support Shelley's message of the Hindu and Buddhist religion. And so he gratefully showed up, and so he's improvising today on both flutes. The first was
Indian bamboo flute.
An Indian bamboo flute.
Also called a bansuri.
Yeah, and the second flute he's going to play is a bass flute, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you for welcome again. Thank you.
Part of what our donation support is our very rich music program, and we are so blessed to have Anthony heading that part of our operation. Please join me in the dedication of our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Our reading this morning comes from the Svetsvatara Upanishad, a Hindu scripture written about 3,000 years ago. O Brahman supreme, formless art thou, and yet, though the reason none knows, thou bringest forth many forms. Thou bringest them forth, and then withdrawest them into thyself. Fill us with thoughts of thee. Thou art the fire, thou art the sun, thou art the air, thou art the moon, thou art the starry firmament, thou art Brahma supreme, thou art the waters, thou the creator of all. Thou art woman, thou art man, thou art youth, thou art maiden. Thou art the old man tottering with his staff. Thou facest everywhere. Thou art the dark butterfly. Thou art the green parrot with red eyes. Thou art the thundercloud, the season, the seas. Without beginning art thou, beyond time, beyond space. Thou art the one from whom sprang the three worlds.
I remember 40 years ago picking up a Unitarian Universalist hymnal for the very first time. I leafed through the music, and I didn't recognize a lot of it, but then I discovered the readings in the back. Now that caught my attention. I was delighted to see readings from different faiths, poetry, and wisdom from many sources. Now this, I thought, was a religion that could teach me a lot about a lot of things, expand my view, deepen my understandings about life. Indeed, our living tradition draws from many sources, including wisdom from the world's religions, which inspire us in our ethical and spiritual life. Over the years, my personal spiritual exploration has taken me in various directions, including an appreciation of Hinduism, which I have discovered to be a very rich source of inspiration and perspective. On my UU journey, I discovered many things about this ancient faith, including how Unitarian Universalism has engaged with Hinduism over time, perhaps in some ways that will surprise you. Imagine yourself watching some of the very first ships arrive in America with goods from India in the 1780s. If you were like most Americans of that era, you were fascinated with the exotic goods and the tales of exotic culture spun by the sea captains. Indeed, Americans exoticized Eastern cultures, a tendency that we still drift toward today when we encounter peoples with very different customs from our own. A few souls moved beyond the fascination with various dancing Shiva statuary and beautiful silks to start looking at the religion of these newly encountered people. The first serious study of American study of Hinduism was conducted by our Unitarian ancestor, the famous scientist Joseph Priestley. Now, you may remember him as the discoverer of oxygen, but he was also a Unitarian minister who was interested in comparative religion. In 1799, he published a comparison of the institutions of Moses with those of the Hindus and other ancient nations. Now, you might be thinking, oh, great, bravo, Joseph Priestley. You are engaging with this kind of analysis. How cool. But you'd be disappointed to learn that his motivation was to demonstrate Christianity's superiority to the heathen religions in response to the criticism of Christianity by French philosophers of the time. Of course, Priestley never went to India and did not have any direct conversations with any actual Hindus, but he did mine an impressive amount of information from European sources about that, complete with their inevitable distortions, assumptions, and misrepresentations as the Europeans put their own spin on what they were learning about Hindus. And in fact, the term Hindu is a Western construction. I just love this. The word Hindu is a Western construction that was adopted via the colonial era and is still in use today. Technically, there is no Hindu religion per se. There just isn't. Hinduism is a broad collection of many religious traditions of the Indian subcontinent going back for thousands of years. There is no particular religion that is Hinduism, but there are many traditions that have cross-pollinated and developed over time into what now we refer to as Hinduism. Just as there's not one form of Christianity, there's not one form of Hinduism, but literally thousands, and I mean thousands, of variations. Now, Priestley's work back in the day did not get much broad notice. However, Unitarian John Adams picked up the thread of Hindu explorations between 1812 and 1817. His correspondence to Thomas Jefferson was filled with discoveries about Hinduism's philosophic sophistication. But note that this exploration that was going on was being carried out by two elites in the American culture of the time. Unitarian Universalist historian Christopher Walton points out that they both assumed and argued that one could demonstrate superiority for Christianity, just like those same elites thought that they could demonstrate the superiority of Unitarian Christianity over Orthodox Christianity. And today, we still tend to engage in this comparison thing as a primary way of trying to understand and learn about other faiths. A practice that, quite honestly, we need to approach with caution and respect. It was a short road from the comparative thinking to the appropriation of Hindu texts in the service of developing the unique American religious thought and practices. Can you guess who were the first Americans to passionately engage with Hinduism as part of their religious quest? Who would that be? The Unitarians. Of course, the Unitarians. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, for starters. In other words, that Boston Concord bunch. And just to give credit to a hidden figure in Emerson's life, he was introduced to Hinduism by his free-thinking Aunt Mary Emerson, who suggested that he check out this ancient wisdom for himself. She had become quite the devotee, and so she was the one who kicked things off. Emerson, Thoreau, Fuller, and other transcendentalists from New England in the mid-1800s were influenced by many cultural currents as they sought to create their own cultural current, embracing spirituality based on intuitive personal experience, nature, and liberal social justice engagement. Hinduism, though, was a definite thread in their explorations, and these Hindu explorations were widely published and featured in lectures and discussion groups all across the young nation. Emerson absorbed the ancient texts and made extensive use of Hindu concepts as he reflected on his own spirituality, especially as he's moving beyond Unitarian Christian thought. Let's look at one example. One of the key concepts in Hinduism from the sacred texts, the Upanishads, is Atman is Brahman, as expressed in our earlier reading. Atman, the innermost self or soul in Western parlance. Brahman is the universal one existent, the invisible essence of all things. It is explained in Hinduism that all persons and all things are really Brahman, taking many shapes, like fire taking the shape of every object it consumes, or air taking the shape of every vessel that it enters. This self, Atman, who is really Brahman, is the only being, the one mind that is everywhere and yet indivisible. So in other words, it's that we are all connected, we are all part of one big thing. So think of Emerson sitting in his study in Concord, pondering all these heady Vedic theological constructs, and then sitting down with his quill pen to write the Oversoul, which is actually a reading that's in the back of our hymnal, if you want to ever look it up. This is what Emerson wrote. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that the sources of nature are in our own minds. As there is no screen or ceiling between our heads and the infinite heavens, so there is no bar or wall in the soul where we, the effect, cease and God, the cause, begins. I am constrained in every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine. There is a deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us. Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable. It comes to the lowly and simple. It comes to whosoever will put off what is foreign and proud. It comes as insight. It comes as serenity and grandeur. The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception. Forever and ever, the influx of this better, the more universal self is new and unsearchable. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breaks through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. Emerson, straight from Hindu. Now, while Emerson went on to stimulate our intellect and give us lots of fodder for contemplation, he also ended up believing that only ideas and high ideals were worthy of ageless veneration, but that the rituals, traditions, and spiritual practices and their cultural contexts were superfluous fluff needing to be discarded. This attitude that elevates thought above the senses and the human need for ritual still rings true for some Unitarian Universalists today. This is a legacy that we would do well to examine further as we strive to be a faith for our times with a healthy whole integration of body, mind, and spirit in worship and as the way we live our faith out in the world. And that brings us to another famous transcendentalist who loved Hinduism, Thoreau. Now, if Emerson was fascinated by Hinduism, Thoreau was head over heels in love with all things Hindu. He read volumes from Emerson's library. Remember, they lived down the street from one another. And also at the library at Harvard. A friend sent him 44 volumes of Vedic thought from England, and he made a special bookcase for them to house them as treasured possessions. Just pick up any, and I mean any, of Thoreau's writings, and you'll find them sprinkled liberally with Hindu references. Just go back and check. Seriously, pull that Walden off your shelf when you get home. Indeed, while we claim Thoreau as a Unitarian, the truth is he didn't go to church. He mainly hung out with Unitarians in Concord, and he was an influencer. He influenced them. So we kind of claim him. His church was the natural world, twined together with an extensive intellectual exploration of every Hindu writing he could get his hands on. Thoreau was a Hindu in all practicality. And unlike Emerson, who stayed with just the heady parts of Vedic wisdom, Thoreau lived Hinduism. He embraced different aspects of yoga or spiritual paths, the word yoga meaning spiritual path. I love that Hinduism offers a wide menu of yoga pathways. Thoreau certainly practiced what's known as jnana yoga, the pursuit of knowledge through scriptural study. He engaged in bhakti yoga, which is the devotional practice. Again, pick up Walden when you get home, and you are going to see descriptions of his devotional practices at the edge of Walden Pond that he referred to as his Ganges. His devotional meditation practices deeply informed him, like the wise admonition of Ganesha to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva to chant Om so that their minds and hearts would be clear on actions to pursue. Now, we don't know if Thoreau practiced Hatha yoga, but somehow I imagine him outside his cabin at Walden, saluting the sun or doing a great downward-facing dog stretch before embarking on one of his long rambles in the woods. He chose to live the life of a yogi ascetic, simply living, practicing vegetarianism, and paring his life down to the essentials. And Thoreau most famously practiced karma yoga, the right action, ethical action that's the embodied way of justice and compassion. Hinduism deeply informed his decision to engage in civil disobedience. He was refusing to participate in the corrupt and unjust Mexican-American War and refused to pay his taxes to support it. He was jailed for his refusal and wrote about it in his famous book, Civil Disobedience, so that others would be inspired to follow his lead. He was a pacifist, a practitioner of the nonviolent protest, a believer in the Hindu ahisma, or non-harm concept. This was karma yoga in action, right action undertaken after ethical reflection. So in other words, you do your Om, you reflect on the right action, and then you go out and make it happen in the world. So yeah, Henry, pretty amazing. Your unique American incarnation of karma yoga has inspired whole movements beyond your wildest dreams in Concord. In fact, we know that Mahatma Gandhi was indeed inspired by Thoreau as well as the moral teachings of Jesus through his education in England. Gandhi was impressed with the sincerity and depth of Thoreau's yogic lifestyle and sensibility and was moved to consider how this form of karma yoga and nonviolent civil disobedience could be expanded to create a movement of thousands to stand up to the British rulers in India. It is amazing to me to think of ancient Hindu concepts that inspired Thoreau, turned back to help liberate India from colonialism via Gandhi in the following century. And what also strikes me about Thoreau from a 21st century lens is that while it's true that in the midst of all that yogi living, he did go into town to do his laundry, his mom helped him, and he was having dinner with friends from time to time. He wasn't exactly a sainted hermit in the wilderness, but he does offer us a way to cope with the times in which we find ourselves. By devoting himself to his spiritual practices, he opened the space within himself to deeply reflect on right actions, on the right karma yoga, to address the pressing matters of his own day. We today would do well to cultivate our own spiritual practices, to open that space within us so that we can discern which right actions about the ever-growing number of social justice concerns that are crying out for our attention. Spending that meditative time and space in whatever way works for you can truly help you know how you can use your gifts to make a difference in the world in the service of love and justice. So I'm wondering, what about you? How have you maybe engaged with Hinduism in your life? I find that I've engaged with it in some ways I didn't expect over time. I've studied its scriptures on the very beginner level, and I'm talking preschool level. And I deeply resonate with some of the contemporary Hindu thought leaders like Deepak Chopra, who seek to study the ancient texts and see the resonance with modern science. A lot of cross-pollination and those ancient people were onto something. That's the best way I can say it. But unlike Emerson, who kept it all very intellectual, I'm also finding that I am moved by bhakti yoga, the devotional practices of Hinduism that I engage with cultural sensitivity and sincere respect. I love doing kirtan. Does anybody here do kirtan, or have you tried kirtan? It's the call and response chanting. You can, check it out on Spotify. You can do this on Spotify now. I just find that when I start hearing the first strains of the harmonium and the beat of the tabla, it doesn't matter to me what the Sanskrit words mean. I just start moving, and there's something that moves within my being. And so, honestly, check it out. If you've never checked out kirtan, just Kirtan, kirtan. Look it up in Spotify or your other apps that offer you music from around the world. I've also appreciated my opportunities to perform pujas at Hindu temples and to become one of the millions hugged by the living Hindu goddess Amachi. So I think maybe there was one little part of me that was a Hindu in another life. I'm open to all kinds of ideas. I'm a Unitarian Universalist. So there's much more that I could observe and reflect about the power of Hindu bhakti yoga, because it offers such a rich menu of possibilities. But my guess is that you all are already familiar with two other forms of Hindu devotional practice, but you might not have realized it. These have been so embraced by mainstream America. One is Transcendental Meditation. How many of you have tried that perhaps in the past, or some version of it? Maybe some of you? Yeah, a few of you? So, and how many of you have practiced yoga in some way? Yeah, that's a lot of us have done that. And just about every yoga class I've ever attended has ended with the simple practice of greeting one another with what? Namaste, right? Namaste. Now, in America, Namaste tends to live at the end of yoga classes. But in India, it's pretty much a standard greeting. In fact, my friends from India tend to greet me with that gesture, just that simple namaste. It's a simple and yet powerful devotional practice. And so I'm just going to ask you to stretch a little bit this morning and practice namaste with someone near you. So just turn to someone near you, whoever that may be. And if you are watching this or experiencing this online, you can imagine being in the room with us, or perhaps turn to someone in your own home. And so I would ask you to raise your hand in the Namaste gesture. And the whole thing is to look into the eyes of your partner. That's the deal. And with our masks on, that's all we're going to do, right? Because the whole thing is to have that full body smile that we have come right through our eyes and into the eyes of the person you're looking at. So I invite you to give that a try if you're willing to be able to do namaste. And as you're doing that, I will be telling you that what the word namaste means, meaning the divine in me recognizes and honors the divine in you, for when you are in that place and I am in that place, we are one. As a Unitarian Universalist, I also think of it as a way of saying, the broken and real person in me recognizes the same in you. The joyful and compassionate person in me recognizes the same in you. The beautiful wholeness in me recognizes the same in you. Namaste. So just thank your partner. Thank your partner. And just now, though, imagine greeting everyone you encounter today and beyond today with that sincere namaste energy. Imagine the beauty of a world where we would truly recognize the inherent worth and dignity, the divinity of each other in every moment. If we learn only one concept from Hinduism, let it be this one beautiful devotional gesture. Now, may it be so. Blessed be. Namaste. And I invite you now to join in singing number 345, which is With Joy We Claim the Growing Light. Again, the words by Samuel Longfellow, who was one of those transcendentalists in Concord, influenced by learning about Hinduism. So keep that in mind as you're singing these words, because I think they're going to speak to you in a different way than they might have when you've sung this in the past. So please rise in body and spirit, and let's give this a try. Go forth knowing that you are deeply connected to ancient ones whose work and wonderings about the nature of all existence continues to bless us with wisdom. May you feel inspiration and hope from those who have creatively and courageously engaged with these ancient thoughts and practices in the service of love, peace, and justice. May Ganesha remove all obstacles in your sacred pathway. Namaste. adventures. Please, we have extinguished this flame somehow. And we know that it holds the warmth of this community and the light of learning as we hold those things in our hearts as we go forth. Please join in singing this congregation's message of love as we end our time together. Peace, salam, shalom.